Gents, I just want to pause the episode for a moment to let you know about the Strong Men of Value Academy. You will have heard me refer to it a number of times, and I want to bring more attention to it. So this isn't just a program, it's a life-changing environment and community of men who are focused on personal and professional growth. We're looking at areas of relationships, wealth, and health, things to help you thrive and maximize your life. Imagine having bi-monthly one-on-one coaching sessions with myself, weekly group coaching calls, and an incredible brotherhood of high achievers by your side. Now we're diving into resilience, leadership, and holistic growth to not just succeed in your career, but to thrive in your health and your relationships. Your journey to greatness, it starts here. So join the movement and you can apply for the Strong Men of Value Academy. You can head to themanthatcanproject.com to find out more. Today, Andy Petranek joins me on this episode. Andy is a professional life, leadership, and performance coach who's been helping people create greater levels of confidence, joy, fulfillment, and success in their lives for over 25 years. This was an extremely enjoyable chat because a lot of the things that Andy has achieved in his life, I've actually been striving towards in my own ways. I feel like he's me on, just a whole nother level. He's a veteran of multiple overseas deployments, including Operation Desert Storm. He's a former United States Marine. He was a Red Bull sponsored athlete in the sport of adventure racing, a CrossFit Games athlete, and he owned CrossFit Los Angeles from 2004. And he's done so many other incredible things. Even now he's got a master's degree in spiritual psychology. So it's interesting to have a discussion with someone that, I perceive as a hard motherfucker to now, be able to balance his energies and what he is output and input throughout this conversation. So there's plenty to gain from this chat, and I know you guys are going to get as much out of it as I did. Now remember, if you haven't checked out our Strong Men of Value program for men all around the world who are wanting to take their life to the next level, head over to themanthatcanproject.com/Strong Men of Value. This week we've actually got the lads doing a incredible challenge, a challenging challenge as it would be, where they are encouraged to do either a 5-kilometer run, ride, row, walk, or ice bath every day for the week, on top of what they're already doing, just to really make things uncomfortable and see how hard they can challenge themselves, even when every other excuse comes into the field. So if you want to get involved with some of the challenges like that, head over to Strong Men of Value. Let's dive into this episode with Andy Petranek. It is going to be an absolute belter. Enjoy.
You're listening to the Man That Can Project with Lachlan Stuart, a global movement created to empower men and open up what's really going through their minds by having real and raw conversations about life's unique challenges and our individual ways of processing it all. Welcome to the Man That Can Project.
Andy, how are you, mate?
Good, how are you?
Going really well, really well. Lovely to meet you.
I'm not used to doing podcasts at night, so I don't know what the lighting's like yet in my office. I don't... I've never really done a night podcast before, so
I appreciate you doing it. What time is it over there?
It's 8:30. It's not that late, but I just, usually knock off work and I'm doing family stuff, after 6. Well, what part of Australia are you in? Australia,
Brisbane. Have you been to? Because I saw you had come out to Australia before for your.
A long time ago, I was in Cairns for an eco challenge.
Yeah, what is the Eco Challenge? Because I was trying to Google it before. I was listening to another podcast that you'd been on, and you've done some wild stuff, man. Like it's incredible how much you've achieved, or just that you've done. But yeah,
I've done a lot. Yeah, I've done a lot. It's kind of weird looking back on all the things I've done. It's like, holy shit, was that really my life?
But what was the Eco Challenge like? How did you find Cairns, actually?
The Eco Challenge is a race. So they told us that that's where the race was going to be. So we had to be there. We had to go there. But the Eco Challenge is an adventure race, which you take a group of people, 4 or 5 people, and you put them out, you stick them out in the middle of nowhere with a backpack or, with supplies. And you say, you've got as much time as it takes you, but it's a race to go from, whoa. There goes the light. It slid off my monitor.
Oh, good.
You go from point A to point B, which is 500 miles away.
Yep.
And you're racing and you have to navigate your way through the course. So it's an adventure, like you have to walk, hike, run. You do there are mountain biking legs. There's whitewater. It just depends on the race, like what the different legs entail doing.
Might just need to pull your screen down a little bit.
Shit. Oh, it's my camera.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, right. Shit.
There we go.
This is fucking logistics. Like, you usually have to I don't even know how to do these logistics. Oh crap! Now it's not moving.
I did a presentation up at up north, sort of near Cairns the other day, and you know how Apple, every time they upgrade their products, they generally change the bloody dongle or something that you plug stuff into. So I had my HDMI cord ready to rumble, and I was setting up, and then because I just got another laptop and it's got a new port, and I was sitting there trying to plug it in, and I was like, oh, again.
It didn't work.
Yeah,
Right.
Apple just has to keep you guessing, like,
yeah, totally.
Never think about. But anyway, but the adventure stuff. So, because I was fascinated when I was reading this, because and you were a sponsored Red Bull athlete as well.
Yeah.
Which is.
I mean, that was in the sport of adventure racing, but when I was sponsored by Red Bull, all we did was the short races, like 3 or 4 hours, which to me now seems like an eternity. But back then, that was a short race.
Yeah. What was it? Sorry, you go.
No, I was going to say my normal distance was either 24 to 48 hours or like 5 to 7 days. So, those were the long races.
Why that distance?
Why?
Yeah, that is. It's insane.
Well, the long ones they're also called expedition races. So they're really expeditions. You've got supplies, you've got resupply points you've got to hit, you've got to you're out, you're covering 300 to 500 miles. So it's not a little undertaking, it's not a little thing. It's a real expedition, except it's a race, as opposed to it being like exploring, climbing a mountain. Like one of the races we did was in Ecuador, and we climbed a volcano called Cotopaxi, which is a 18,000 or so foot mountain that a lot of people do for the hike, that's all they do. But we were on foot to get to Cotopaxi. We had to navigate our way there, and it probably took us 3 days to get to Cotopaxi of nonstop trekking. And then we had to climb it, and then we had to continue on with other stuff. So, it's just a thing, Man,
it blows my mind, because when I was obviously, this is the first time we've spoken, but I've been listening to a few podcasts that you've been on. You've been on some podcasts since like 2013. And then as I was, reading through a bit about your life, for me, I was like, I love what you've done and what you've achieved, because I feel like I can resonate to a lot of the stuff that you've achieved, but obviously on a smaller scale. But you're in the Marines, which is pretty incredible. And I look forward, very incredible.
Have we started recording already, or what's the format of this? Are we already going? Or
we're going, and we'll chop and change. But I just love having a convo.
I'm like, holy shit! When are you gonna say 3, 2, 1, go? Like shit, maybe we already started. What the hell?
Well, I'll fill you in, Andy, because I think from when we first spoke, or the emails went back and forth, and we had that template. What I found was I love just chin wagging. Like I always do my research on people and find out, and obviously you've got your area of expertise, which is where we'll navigate it. But what for me personally, I love listening to conversations where it's like this is how it goes. And I was like, well, I feel like for such a long time, some of the best parts of the conversations that I have, I don't recall, because I have a bit of a yarn beforehand.
Yeah, right.
And then I'll go, right, let's get into it. And then all the juicy stuff's gone, and I'm like, do I bring that back up again or not? So what I've been doing with the last bits, and I've even edited our whole back end, is just having a chin wag, and then I'll cut out some bits. And
yeah, cool. That's fine. I was just curious. I'm like, are we getting all this? Or are we? Yeah. Should I be on now? I mean, I'm on, but like, I feel very raw because of all the light stuff, and
I think Eddie. I think our audience. So like if you listen to a few of the episodes, like I try to be as authentic as and genuine as possible. We've had episodes where like Forrest Black, who's a huge Canadian musician, like Billboard artist, midway through his computer shut down and he's jumped back on. He's like, that's life, man. Like everyone tries to have these polished ideas of what it is. Obviously, if that happens, we crop that little bit, but
right.
Allow the conversation to happen like that, because most of our audience, we average a ton of 25,000 plus listeners, and they just love the authenticity. And from what I listened, as I said, I was listening some stuff about you and watching some stuff, and just like how genuine you are and how authentic. I was like, you and I will have an absolute belter of a conversation. But then,
cool.
As I was reading your resume, I would love to have been walking in your shoes from your life, and I'm excited to hear more about it, because I'm an avid CrossFitter. Like, you competed in the CrossFit Games, which is
nice.
The ultimate goal.
You competed in the games?
No, I wanted to. I created a YouTube channel back in the day called Rookies to Regionals, when it was regionals, and then obviously it's changed to sanctionals. But it was a escapade, and then obviously had the CrossFit gym there. Yeah. And then you've done all these adventure races. Like the longest I've sort of, I guess, challenged myself physically is in a 12-hour challenge. And for me, that was excruciating. So when you're like 48 hours was my distance, I'm like, are you crazy? Like, that just blows my mind. Literally in the last leg of our, so we were doing CrossFit moves. We were doing like a triathlon. We did all these different things in our 12-hour challenge. And when I finished it, the last leg was obviously jumping in the pool, and then we had the run. As soon as I jumped in the pool, my hamstrings cramped up and I had to get rescued out of the pool, because there was no
I've had things like that happen before. Yeah. And I know exactly what you mean. There was a race I did once that I was experimenting going back to adventure racing after having just done CrossFit for it was like the first 9 or 10 months of doing CrossFit, maybe a year of doing CrossFit. And I had stopped doing anything longer than a WOD. So my workouts were at the longest, like 30 or 40 minutes, but that was like once every 6 weeks. Every other workout was like 8 minutes or 6 minutes or 12 minutes, or there were these really short things. And I was testing to see, well, is it really true? Can CrossFit prepare you for anything? Like, could I go out and do this race? And so I went out with a couple of friends, and it was a race where I had raced a lot in the past, the location. And so I was very familiar with the course or the landscape and what was coming. And we went out on the run, and I was pretty good on the first run. I felt great actually in the first run, like that. I think that was like 30 or 40 minutes. And then we started mountain biking, and I did okay in the mountain biking, but I could start feeling I was starting to feel my hamstrings and my quads like cramping in a weird way. Like, I don't, when you do 4-day races and 48-hour races, you don't cramp after an hour. Like, that doesn't happen. And I was cramping. And then there was another running portion. And in that running portion, it was like my entire body locked up. I felt like I was like Herman Munster, like I couldn't bend my knees. My teammates had to carry me, and my knees were completely locked out, and I was like a corpse. It was hilarious. And it was, I think that was probably about an hour and a half in, or almost 2 hours in. So I very quickly found out, like, okay, CrossFit's great, but if you want to do things longer than about 40 minutes, you need to train and do other things. Duh. I mean, it seems stupid now, but I was testing.
Yeah, you got to test the theory, though. And I think that's cool, because you can definitely fall in the trap of listening to what people say. And, obviously there's credible people, but there's no harm in giving things a bit of a nudge for yourself to really find out, I think. But you're a professional life, leadership, and performance coach. And you've done all these incredible, wild things along the way. How did you get to that point, and what's a bit of the backstory? Like, I remember you were saying you were very musical from a young age.
Yeah. I was a musician. My mom and dad were both composers composers, conductors, and professional viol. My mom was violin. My dad was a violist. And so, pop culture in my house was classical music. I didn't learn all the things. My wife is highly versed in everything pop culture. And so she always makes a lot of fun of me because I don't know things. I know a lot more now because I've been with her for 20 some years. And so I've learned over the years, but and like the other night, a piece came on. We were watching a movie and some classical piece came on. She goes, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's Dvorak's Sixth or something, or whatever it was." And I just know all this because the first 20 years of my life, it's all I listened to and all I did. I went to the Eastman School of Music for trumpet, which is like Juilliard. It's one of the top music schools in the country. And but then I discovered girls and beer and fraternities, and there were other like intramural sports. And I'm like, oh, I don't have to like play the trumpet to like succeed. Oh, I think I'm going to do some other stuff. And I gave it up. My freshman year, I gave it up.
Do you still dabble in it now, or did you ever get back into it?
I never did. I mean, I played some through college. I played I couldn't continue to play at Eastman because it was like top level stuff, but I played on my campus, which was University of Rochester, in their orchestra. I can pick the trumpet up now and play anything for about 3 minutes. And it's just like adventure racing. Like I'm good for about 3 minutes. And then your lips are just muscles, and those muscles are not in good shape. So I actually surprised myself that I can sound really good for like 3 or 4 minutes. And then, pretty low, I can't hit the high notes and stuff anymore. But,
still pretty impressive because there's so much that I always go through. I got my guitar just hanging here.
Yeah.
My missus is a professional musician. So
Wow.
when I watch her doing it and heard the band, I'm like, oh, it's fantastic. And then I try to do it and I can do a few things, but then I go through ebbs and flows, but I'm always like, I really want to learn it just to train my brain and dexterity and a whole heap of stuff like that. But obviously it's not a major priority. But
it's so funny growing up because my family was all classical musicians. Guitar, then they were teachers too. Guitar was always that instrument that everybody at school learned when they didn't learn. I always thought it's because they weren't good enough to play an orchestral instrument. Like guitar was like the easy thing that you learned if you couldn't play the trumpet or the French horn or the bassoon or the violin. So cut to later in life, I was, 20 years ago, I got my wife got me a guitar for Christmas. I wanted a guitar. I'm like, oh, I'll pick up the guitar. I know I'm a musician. I can learn the guitar. It's the easy instrument. It's the instrument for people that, can't play other things, right? And holy shit, there's nothing easy about the guitar. I mean, the guitar is a freaking monster. I love the guitar, but it's, it's just not at all what I thought, of course it's not. Like what a moron, what a numbskull, but that's what I thought. Yeah.
The easy instrument for me at school was the recorder. Do you know that?
Yes, 100%. Yeah,
and I still struggled with that. So then I'm looking at the guitar like it's the badass thing. It's like
you don't really want to tell anybody that you struggled with the recorder.
No, music was not my forte. That's why I did whatever I could to get out of choir. We actually had to do it. Like it was compulsory until I think we were like 10
to sing in choir.
Yeah. And I was terrible. Like I
think I got out of all that because I played the trumpet so well. I got out of.
That's where I went wrong.
Yeah.
But when you went into fraternity and all that, you ended up in the Marines. Take us through?
I got a scholarship to go to college. They paid my way through college, so they paid my tuition.
Perfect.
And I wasn't convinced that I wanted to do it. It was a Navy scholarship, so I didn't have to do it in the Marines. And I wasn't even really convinced that I wanted to do it at all, but they give you a year to decide whether or not you're in or you're not in. And they don't make you pay that money back. So it was like a free year of school. you spend the year, you get all the uniforms, and you have to go through kind of the indoctrination in college. And and then in the summer, you spend a month on active duty on a ship somewhere in the world. Because I did really well my freshman year, not only did I spend a month on a ship, but I also went to Navy dive school in Florida, where I learned how to scuba dive, and I did all this hardcore training, underwater training, which was awesome. It was awesome. It was like 6 weeks of like incredible. Like a lot of the guys who go to the Navy SEALs who don't make it through BUDS end up being dive officers in the Navy. So there's all these studs that I'm going through this school with. I then I ended up being stationed on a ship in the Mediterranean for a month. I mean, how bad could it be? You're a 20-year-old kid, and you're going around the world, and I went to Italy, I went to Israel, I went to Sicily, flying on planes, and there's no way I was saying no after that first year. I mean, I was in, like, this is awesome. I didn't even know what I was going to be doing. And then it turned out the second year, I really wanted to be a pilot, but I didn't have the eyesight, and it was before the LASIK surgery. And I didn't want to be the navigator, the guy in the back seat. So I was like, well, if I can't be a pilot, I love what the Marines do, and I love the esprit de corps, and I love that they're the best of the best. I'm going to be in the Marine Corps. So I had to change my option, and I shifted into being a Marine. And so that's how I ended up in the Marine Corps for 4 years.
What was that like being, so like the Marine, just because a lot of our audience throughout Australia and New Zealand and UK and stuff, like, can you give us a quick rundown of what the Marine Corps is? Because I'm going off, is it John Cena in the Marine, the movie, or whichever?
I mean, it's, look, I mean, I went in as an officer. So there's a lot of responsibility put on you at a very young age. You're fresh out of college. You're smart. You're book smart. You've had a lot of life experience. Well, college life experience. I wouldn't call that real life experience. And suddenly you're thrust into a situation where you've got 30, 40, 50 men who have been in for 4 years. They went in, they enlisted after high school, and they went enlisted, and now you're in charge of them. You're running the show. So it is, it's daunting. It's weird at first. I mean, they train you and they prepare you, and you learn everything you need to learn, but you're still left to your own devices to figure out how to do this and how to, be an effective leader. And I mean, I love that. I love the experience. I love the training. That's where I learned how to navigate that's why adventure racing was so natural for me, because I knew I could carry a lot of gear, and I could find my way with a map and compass anywhere in the world. And so I really loved it. I was a combat engineer, which meant we were trained to be infantry, like shooting things and, normal infantry, but we also carried equipment where we could defuse bombs, defuse mines, and then blow things up. So we were the explosive experts, not like EOD that diffuses stuff, but we were able to help the Marines get through like a minefield or clear obstacles, or blow up a bridge.
How was it for you then at a young age, like being thrown in the deep end without really having, I guess, experience too much around leadership and having any really formal leadership training to then navigate through it? Because there's some people who are amazing leaders, and there's some people who are in leadership positions that are terrible leaders. So for you, like, how did you, I guess, educate yourself around that, but also just, build that version of a leader?
I think I had advantage of having not had experience in those roles, because I just paid attention, and I was really good at learning and like learning the book, learning the guidebook. Here's what you do. Here's how you do it. And I was really good at that. I could, one of the things that the Marines do, to be an effective fighting force is they take, whether you're an enlisted guy or you're an officer, they basically take who you are before you came into the Marines, and they help you remove it, or they make you remove it, and you remove your operating system of who you were, and then they insert Marine operating system. And the better you are at operating the Marine operating system, the more of the self you left behind is gone, for the most part, the better you are at being a Marine leader. Turns out I was really good at that. Like I was like that was something I was looking for, without even really knowing I was looking for it, because I grew up with an alcoholic father who was not really around very much for me. And so I was raised by women, basically. I had a mom and an aunt who were like my surrogate. Well, they were my moms, basically. And they did the best they could, but my dad was he was either working or he was drinking or, and was not around. I don't have a lot of memories of time spent with him. I didn't learn much from him. And so there was I think the Marine Corps also represented for me a male role model that I could, oh, this is how you do it. Oh, this is how a man does it. This is what you do. And this is how you do it. And so I just, paid attention and was smart enough to listen, Do
you feel being raised by more females made you then look at how maybe men were acting in the Marine Corps or just in life in general and question some of the things that men do, or even masculine traits as it seems?
I don't remember that. I don't remember questioning. I just remember being very excited to feel like I knew. Like I had a lot of confidence in what I was doing, but the confidence was all because I had learned it from out of the book, out of like, this is the way you're supposed to do things. I didn't have anything to unlearn. A lot of kids would go in there with dads that were poor role models. They had to unlearn shit. They were the ones that got suffered in boot camp. I mean, they were the ones that just got, they couldn't let go of what they came in with. I didn't have anything to let go because I was just like a sponge. Like, teach me. I want to learn how to do this.
Did you feel there was any emotional stuff? Like, because when I think about that, like learning from the book, it's, if everyone was able to just learn from the book, we would all be, nailed,
right.
Loaded with money, and everything would be perfect in our life. But I feel like there's cracks appear in the emotions and limiting beliefs and various other shit pops up. Like,
yeah. Well, the cracks started appearing for me. The cracks started appearing for me in college, and I didn't really recognize them as cracks. I didn't know what they were. They got worse when I was in the Marines. Most of it was around my confidence around other people and women and people of authority. Like I had a real hard time dating. I was like, I felt like such an awkward fish out of water at any bar I went to, any club I went to, any place where someone asked me who I was. I didn't know. Because there wasn't a book for that. There wasn't I didn't have the guidebook. I knew how to march. I knew how to call cadence. I knew how to, wear my uniform. I knew how to, basically basic principles of leadership. But when I had to insert me, I was a bit of a shell.
How'd you figure out who you were then? Because I feel like a lot of, myself included, like a lot of people are just going through life in such routine that they never take time to actually slow down and think about who am I for a moment, and is what I'm doing and how I'm spending my time adding value to that and making me feel fulfilled.
It's a great question. I got lucky, really. I was right around the time I started adventure racing. After the first year of adventure racing, I decided to quit my job I was a sales rep for a big Fortune 500 company. This is the first job I had after the Marines. And I was like, I love this lifestyle. I love this adventure racing lifestyle. That's all I want to do. Like, I knew I needed to make money. So I went back to massage school and became a massage therapist. And I got a job working with my friend who was an adventure racer. She ran the nutrition department at, this is unbelievable, but Gold's Gym in Venice, California, like the mecca of bodybuilding. She was the nutrition person at Gold's Gym in Venice. And she's like, Andy, I'm looking for someone who's smart, who's sharp, who's fit, who is good with people. And do you want, like, I'm like, well, I don't really know anything about nutrition, but I'm willing to learn. And she's like, great, that's it. You're the one. You're the man. I'm like, okay. So I was massage therapist and a nutrition coach, like at Gold's Venice. And there was, I don't know what was going on, but there was one evening where she was headed out to go to this thing she called group. And I didn't have any idea what the hell it was. And she invited me to go. And she goes, I can't really explain it, but you might find you get something out of going. I'm like, okay. So I was still being a sponge. I was still like, I threw myself into this thing. Like, that was my strategy. Jump into something. You don't have to know anything as long as somebody's there to teach you, and just be a sponge and you absorb it all. So I'm just, anything she said to do, I just said yes to. And so I went to this group, and it was a lady. This was in 1996. I don't even think life coaching was a thing. Like, I don't think anybody even used the term life coaching in 1996. She was running a class. There were about 20 people there. And she was a bubbly blonde, kind of little ditzy, very charismatic person standing up in front of the room and, giving a class, teaching a class. And she was talking about love and authenticity and truth and the difference. She made distinctions between, one thing and another thing, just like life things, like things that I had no idea what, like, what? Whoa, what is that? And I was so transfixed in this class. Now, these people that were in this class, I'd say the normal person, because look, I'm as normal as anybody else, but the normal group in this class, they were addicts. They had suffered through things like, rape and incest. And I mean, they had some real trauma in their life. I didn't have any real trauma. My trauma was all like invisible and emotional trauma. Like growing up with an alcoholic dad, he didn't beat me. He didn't, I didn't have any of those same stories. So I kind of judged my own presence there. Like, I shouldn't go back, but Kathy went back and I decided I'd go back. And then I just couldn't stop going. Like, I was so mesmerized by what this lady was teaching that it became like breathing to me. Like, there was no question I was going. And then I wasn't making very much money at the time. This is about a year later. I might've been making all of 15 grand a year, maybe. And I decided to hire her as my one-on-one coach. And
so even as 15 grand a year, what's that?
It was nothing. Yeah, she was charging $150 and $150 or $200 a session.
$188 let's just round it up to $300 a week you were earning, and you're already considering investing in yourself.
Yes. It was crazy. Like, I don't know, where'd that come from? I don't know where that I mean, my mom was a teacher, maybe that came from something I saw in her, over my life. But I was like, I want this more than it, because she could explain things. She could explain why, she could help me understand why I was so thrown off when I walked into a bar and a girl asked me my name and I couldn't remember my name. Or I stood up in front of a group of people. This is typical. A lot of people have this, but you stand up in front of a group of people that you've known for years, and you go to give a farewell little speech, and you can't remember your first name, or like a cop pulls you over and you're so nervous you can't even get a word out of your mouth. Like those were things that happened to me that were disturbing. And then these recurring patterns with girlfriends that, none were right. None worked. None were right. None worked. Like 4 or 5 girlfriends that I went through that I'd been engaged at that point once, and that fell apart. And, so I was just very curious, like, what is going on and why is it going on? And then if she could help point me in the direction of finding answers, I was in to listen. And I just did. I worked with her for like 15 years.
15 years.
Yeah. I was a slow learner. Well, let's see. She passed away she was in a car accident in 2010. And, I still think it's something that she was really preparing everybody in her community for, because she had talked about death and dying, and she used to talk about how okay she is. Like, she didn't look at it as the end of anything. It's really kind of the beginning. And there was an okayness with really anything in your life that she had. And she passed away in this really traumatic way, shocking way for everybody else. And when I went to her memorial service, one of the things that I got from her was this sense of, she was this representation of pure, unconditional love. I could be in her presence and I could share anything about anything that I'm ashamed of or afraid of, or there was nothing that I couldn't say to her where I wouldn't feel protected, taken care of, held, like it's okay. No matter what, it's okay. And I went to this memorial service and there were 350 or 400 people there. It was huge. And one of the things that I had come from in my relationships, in my relationship at that time with my wife, I was married to my wife that I currently have, is the sense that if I love too much, love is of a limited supply. Love is a scarce commodity that if you do too much, if you give too much, or if I would give too much of to her without getting it in return, that it might run out, that it might, like, I know that's not logical, but that's the way I acted. And when I was at this memorial and I realized there were 400 people there, every person there had the same experience of my teacher, Mona, that I did. The love never ran out. In fact, it was like a spring that just never, the more you gave, the more came out. Like, everyone there had these stories of this abundance of, no matter who it was, whether they were clients or they were friends of hers or they were family, it just oozed out of her everywhere. And I left that thinking, what the fuck are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Like, if you want love in your life, be love. Don't wait for your wife to be loving to you and measure whether or not you're going to give it back to her if she's loving you enough. It really woke me up. It really shook me.
Thanks for sharing that. That's extremely powerful. It sort of touches on like taking ownership for your life and the experiences that you want to create and receive, rather than being at the effect of, like you were just saying, with waiting for your partner to love you enough. It's like, well, are you giving the best of yourself?
Right.
Because it's always that tit for tat. It's like, we don't want to expose ourselves or be vulnerable in case we don't get it back. But it's like, well, if we continue to live life in this moderate way where we're, not we're trying to avoid the real lows and the real highs, it's like it becomes fucking boring.
Yeah.
Whereas if we can learn to be vulnerable and give our full self, we do get those extreme highs. Yeah, you're going to experience pain and suffering and things like that. But that's what makes life so great, is being able to, I guess, be aware of the experiences that are happening around you, but also walk through life going, well, as you said, what are you waiting for? Like, I'm here to get the most out of life. And I think from what I've seen you do, you've just are sucking the life out of it. Like, you're just making the most of it.
I was sucking the life. I mean, like, to the outside observer, you would look at my life and that's what you'd think, right? But I would say up until about 3 years ago, I still really struggled with this inner sense of a willingness of abundance, of living in an abundance mindset, of not constantly judging myself for, like, I lived with the expectation. I lived from achievement to achievement to achievement to achievement. And so if I wasn't achieving something, I was looking for the next thing to achieve. Like, that was how I created a sense of well-being in me, was to achieve something more. And I also was very stubborn in my relationship with my wife. And in spite of having learned that lesson, I went from her passing away and learning that lesson to then enrolling in a 2.5 year master's degree program in spiritual psychology, which is kind of like love psychology. And I still struggled. I still, like, in that program, you bring a lot of your life issues and you work through your life issues while you become skilled at counseling and coaching and talking to people and listening. And I didn't make the connection in my own life. I was very good at looking out at other people's lives and seeing their struggles. And almost like Brene Brown has a great video about the difference between sympathy and empathy. I was a master of sympathy. I was masterful. I was great at sympathy, but I didn't connect to inside me. So I couldn't really feel what the people on the other end were experiencing. And then I had this big thing happen. You want me to keep telling?
Yeah, keep going. I'm absorbed in your story.
In 2019, so I was running this, we had started this game called the Whole Life Challenge. It was a online health and wellness game when I was running my gym. We built it for the gym. We had a couple software engineers who had built the game for us, who were clients. And it wasn't supposed to be really anything other than something really cool for our clients at the gym. But it turned out it was amazing. It was incredible. And we then ran it and allowed our gym members to invite their friends and family. It doubled in size. We're like, wow, this is pretty damn good. I got a lot of relationships in CrossFit. Maybe we should invite other CrossFit gyms to do this. Maybe we can find a way for them to make money. We did. We created this thing. Suddenly, we had 10,000 people in a Whole Life Challenge. And my business partner decided this is too good to not go in full time. So he went full time, started doing Whole Life Challenge. And when I sold the gym in 2015, I came on and started working in Whole Life Challenge full time also. And by 2018, we had a challenge in January of 2018 where 28,000 people around the world registered for this thing. It was they paid $49 or $59 per person, and we thought, holy shit, we're on the way to a nice $10 or $20 million business, and it was growing year after year. Like there was nothing getting in the way, and then something did.
A little obstacle in the way.
Yeah. So 2019 hit and the January challenge came up, and suddenly, instead of 20% growth, we had 50% drop. We're like, fuck, what happened?
It's quite significant.
It was significant. Yeah, it was really significant. It was like a 70% difference between what we expected and what we got. And, we were a small company. We didn't have like data analytics and people to analyze everything that, happened and why did this happen? And what we figured in hindsight was two things. One was we had really, I can speak for myself personally, and my business partner can speak for himself, but I think from a leadership standpoint in the company, we had gotten lazy. We had kind of kicked back. We were watching it go. We're like, oh, this is going to just keep going. We weren't really innovating new things. We weren't creating new things. We had two full-time developers, but they were developing things to make the internal workings of the game better, not new stuff that was visible on the outside. And then also in that year period, 2018 to 2019, that was when, do you remember when we started the challenge, nobody did challenges. It was like we were the only act in town. But in like 2018, when the ice bucket challenge and challenges went crazy, like everybody suddenly had a challenge. You could do a handstand challenge. You could do a plank challenge. You could do a stop picking your fingernail challenge. You could do a, don't shave your beard challenge, for how long can you grow your beard? I mean, and they were all free. So not only did we have competition from normal competition, but we had competition from every challenge on Facebook that were free in private Facebook groups that, the world was enraptured by. And my partner and I, we started making some changes. I wanted to make some changes in the business over a couple of years. So for me, these changes were not rapid. I had been contemplating a lot of this stuff for years, but for the rest of my team and for my business partner, I went fucking crazy. Like I was making changes so fast and furious. I hired a guy who was, in hindsight, was really destructive for the camaraderie and the teamwork that we had built among our own staff. We had two people quit. We had almost a third person almost quit, which would have been the end. Like she was really the linchpin that held a lot of this stuff that we did together. And then none of the changes that I really was the spearhead of implementing, none of them worked. And my definition for working was it needs to work. It doesn't need to work long-term. It needs to work now. We need to get these, like I lost all sense of like rational thinking. Like we're not dying. It's just, we need to make some changes and can take time. My emotional brain didn't operate that way. And I started to, with all these things happening simultaneously, and then nothing I was doing that was working and not having another plan. I had put all my eggs in this basket. This was going to be my exit strategy from, having to work anymore. It was going to be the thing that was going to help my wife not to have to work anymore. And in my mind, it was just crashing down around me. And so I went crashing down. I started having panic attacks. I was suffering for months with anxiety. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop my brain from catastrophizing and thinking about all the negative consequences and how I was going to end up homeless and underneath a bridge in LA, at some point. There was a point at which we were supposed to take a trip to the East Coast. My son has played baseball since he was like 5, and we were going to this really meaningful tournament in New York, upstate New York, with him. And I said to Julia, this is like 2 weeks before, I'm like, I don't know if I can go. I'm afraid to leave the house. Like look at all the shit I've done. It didn't even make any sense. Like I had this terror inside that I couldn't handle even the basic stuff of life. Like I couldn't leave the house. It even sounds crazy me saying it now, sounds a little bit weird.
I find it mind-blowing. Like though, for me, like I know the mental resilience that a CrossFit athlete even has to have just to be a regionals level athlete, not let alone the the resilience and the grit to be a games level athlete and then do these ridiculously grueling enduro challenges and adventure races that you've done, plus being in the, like, you've done so much stuff that requires you to be mentally, like, you're a hard motherfucker from like,
yes.
And then for you to experience that as well, for me, it's awesome. Like, obviously not an awesome experience for you, but it's awesome to know that it doesn't matter how mentally, like how much you sharpen the sword, stuff can still slap you in the face.
Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't even about sharpening the sword. It was about, it was a side of my life that just hit me, completely blindsided me. I didn't know that I was jumping from one achievement to the next in order to satisfy my own ego and my own success. I didn't see, that I was doing that. And as soon as, I had enmeshed my own success as a human being, as a man, with my business. And as soon as I saw my business failing, it's still going today. It's not failing. It didn't fail. It's still actually doing really well. Not with me, but it's still fine. It was all in my head. This was all just conjured up stuff, make believe, like that I had convinced myself that this was the end of me as what I'd known. And in some ways, maybe it's a good thing. It took me almost a year to come through. My business partner kind of took over. And when I came back, my business partner and I had always operated as co-chair, CEOs. And we look at things very differently. So we want to go there. I say, let's go around to the right. And he says, let's go around to the left. Right. So that works really well if you're around each other a lot and you're taking turns at leadership, or you're having conversations about the discrepancies in the way you think you should go. But when I was gone for, 9 months, almost a year, he was really making the decisions on purpose. I removed myself. I couldn't really handle the decisions. I couldn't look at the numbers. I couldn't look at anything. The company had really shifted in purpose and intention and direction and the way it was going. And I became a bit of a pain in the ass. Like, I came back and I was really a thorn in the side of the company, in the side of the other employees. It was a small team at that point. I think there was only 4 employees, 4 or 5, and my partner. And I realized we had one staff meeting where I was like, the entire meeting, all that happened was everybody in the meeting catching me up on what was going on. And I'm like, this is stupid. I don't have a job. I don't report to anyone. I don't have to do anything. Why do you guys have to catch me up? I don't need to know. All I'm going to do is criticize whatever decisions Michael's making, because I'm not seeing that we should be moving in the direction that he thinks we should move. I need to go. And 24 hours later, I had that conversation with him, and I'm like, dude, I have to get out of your way. Like, this does not serve. We had built this incredible community, a couple 100,000 people who still use the challenge. I didn't want to see the challenge disrupted or hurt, or, and I just was like, I'm out. I gotta go.
How'd you move the ego out of the way with, like, to even be aware and acknowledge that? That's huge in itself.
Yeah. I don't know. I talked with a coach. I had a person who I was coaching with, and I talked to my coach about it, but it was really that sense of that I got in that. It was the meeting. There was something that occurred in that meeting when I just looked at my purpose here, and I just thought, I'm serving no purpose other than to be the heckler. And that doesn't serve anybody. And And it was really, I needed that push from the universe because I think really from the days that I was working with my first life coach that I told you about before, Mona, and then when I got my spiritual psychology degree, I think I was really longing to be in this work as a life coach from way back. And things were just going too well. The CrossFit gym was going great. The whole life challenge was going great. And I didn't have enough impetus or confidence. I was never as good as Mona. I was living in the world of comparison. So, I wasn't enough. I wasn't good enough. I was never as good as she was. And things were already going good in my work life. So there wasn't enough momentum or shoving from anything else to get me to do this. And this was really the shove that I needed, because I didn't know what else. I didn't know. It wasn't that I didn't know what else to do. I knew that this was what I was going to do. I knew. I just, when I had that meeting and I thought, it's time for me to be a coach. It's time for me to be a life coach, or it's time to help. It's time to give back all these things that I've learned myself over 25 years of self-development and exploration. It's time for me to unmask myself and to step into something new, even though I was scared to death and didn't know or didn't think I could.
Now that you're, I guess, going through that process and you have stepped into the life leadership and performance coaching, are you going to rely on, because you've reached what seems to be the pinnacle in so many different things, right? Like from various levels of success. Is there like a cut copy template? Like, is what you were doing back then working for you now, or how are you approaching this sort of next chapter for yourself?
When you say then,
like,
what do you mean?
So building the last company, so the whole life challenge. But even then, I guess what it took for you to be successful as in CrossFit and with your gym and various other things like that. Like, do you feel like you still need to be that same person, or are you continuing?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are certainly elements from all those aspects of my life that I'm bringing with me. I mean, there's elements of discipline, of accountability, of mental toughness, of a willingness to a resilience that I bring with me. But in that experience, the panic attack year, you could look at it as a really dark year, or you could really look at it as a spiritual kind of awakening year. The connection I developed to my own vulnerability, my own heart, my own, like, learning how to be kind to myself, how to love myself. It sounds weird saying it, I'm not talking about, loving myself with my hand. Whenever I'm around guys, I always say that, like, I'm like, because like it just sounds weird. Mind
goes, it's like, yeah, man,
it's where we all go, right? No, I like learning how to accept every aspect of me, no matter failing, not failing, making a lot of money, not making a lot of money. And then the connections that I was able to feel and create with other people who were also going through their versions of my struggle. Like, I remember having a phone call with my mom in that year. My mom had, when my mom and dad got divorced, my mom was leaving with us. My dad wouldn't leave the house, wouldn't move out of the house. And he had been away to Hazelden to get sober for 2 months. Hazelden's this big rehab place in Minnesota. And the day he came back was the day my mom had decided we're moving out, and my dad didn't know. And so it was a pretty tumultuous day.
Yeah.
But my mom didn't have anywhere to go. We moved out. She moved all our stuff into storage, and we moved into a family's home that was leaving for the summer. And we basically took care of their home. They had chickens. They had, it was like this little farm that we took care of. And then when they came back, we moved into the basement of another family's house. We were not really on the run, but it was not normal.
Yeah.
To say the least. And I had never taken a moment. First of all, I never really looked at it as bad. It was kind of a fun, it was like an adventure. I don't know that I gave myself permission to look at it as bad, because I knew how important it was to hold things together for my mom and our family. But I had never really been able to relate to the struggle that my mom went through. I never really allowed myself to feel what that must have been like for her. To not know. She was a school teacher. She wasn't making a lot of money. To not know where she was taking her kids, to not really have her family that was supporting her, because they never really liked my dad. And I had this call with her where I just wept. I was like, Mom, I feel now what it must have been like for you, because I know how hard it was for me. I couldn't just shake it off. I couldn't shake off the fear and the doubt and the worry that I had going through that year. And suddenly I can relate to other people who have had those experiences and who have had to keep going in spite of the odds. I didn't even have it that bad. And so I think now that's what I bring into my practice now. It's this incredible sense of enoughness. I'm enough. I'm worthy. I don't have to prove anything. I don't need to be the next greatest life coach in the world. I don't have a sales page. My web designer wanted me to make my website in a like a funnel and all with all these offers and have a group and all these things. And I'm like, I'm not interested in that right now. I want to help people one at a time, and that's all I want to do. He goes, but you can't scale that. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Duh, man. But it's so beautiful how you've said that, and I think it's really hit a chord with me, because I feel like even in my life, it's from one, ticking one box to the next. It's just continually, moving and growing and trying to, stroke the ego. But and I'm the same with you with the Man That Can project. It's the same. You're around people and they're like, you got to scale, and a lot of my clients are 6, 7, 8, 9 figure, like wealthy people, and you talk to them and you're like, I need to do more. I'm not helping enough people. I'm not, earning enough people. But then when I'm a pretty simple bloke. Like I just love talking, surfing and adventures. Mm-hmm. And when I'm back doing that, I'm like, I make my life so hectic trying to look like someone or be someone when you said what you just beautifully said then is like, I just want to help one person at a time, one conversation at a time, one meeting at a time, and I'm content with that. But it's that battle of when I'm out in the world outside of this apartment, it's like you're constantly thinking about, or I am, it's like, how are people perceiving me, and am I doing enough? Am I being lazy? And that's that battle, that thing that I'm trying to juggle now. And I think it's important for maybe people to start thinking about, because we say, when I retire, I'll do that, or I'll be able to switch off. And it's like, well, if you can't
someday,
if you can't do it now, like fuck, you're going to be able to do it when you retire.
Mm-hmm.
There's no chance. So I think it's for me, I'm going to look forward to continue learning from you, because I think there's that you've got you've achieved so much, and there would be so many tools and strategies and insights that you would have to help people go from where they are now to where they want to get to. But also the fact that now I think from my experience with having coaches and having mentors, sometimes they often have that emotional disconnect where they can't really empathize with you. And it's like, well, I know that in order to do this, I need to do that. Like logically, that makes sense, but you're missing what I'm experiencing right now. And that's where I, like we were talking about earlier, if we all read the playbook, we'd all be.
That's where I was. That's what I was before. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been able to then work out all that shit in between, how people can really get the growth and the progress for them moving forward. And
it's funny because most of the people that I see and most of my clients come to me thinking that they need a strategy, they need tools, they need tips, they need, the 5 steps. And, what do I do? What do I do? Even in the middle of a conversation. Okay, well, what do I do with that? And, my response most of the time is has nothing to do with what you do. It has to do with, it's a level of being, not a level of doing. And the problem with being is there's no action steps. It's usually slowing down and creating space and accepting and learning how to clear judgments, self-judgments, even see that you're mired in self-judgment, and that's not fast. It's not like you can just superimpose some operating system or some 10-step manual on top of your life. It's like, it would be asking like a dog to take a manual for being a cat and just do these 10 things. And now you'll be a cat. Like, no, it doesn't work. You're being a dog,
I've got 2 questions for you because this time's flown, but for you, as I said, you're a hard motherfucker with a lot of the stuff that you've put yourself through and what you've achieved, but also now you're such an empathetic, caring, loving person. I love that the fact that you can balance both of those. I think there's definitely a stigma around blokes needing to be tough and hardened and all that sort of persona. For you, what does it mean to be a man from your experiences?
It means to be tough enough to be able to share vulnerably and to love.
Love it.
I could never do that. I could never say that, when I was just being tough. That's why I couldn't remember my name when I walked into a bar. Could never, I knew how to do one thing one way, and anything that required me to open up my heart and to have empathy or feeling was off limits. Being able to cry. It's another element.
Powerful. For people who, and because you work with men and women, for people out there who would love to get in touch with you and, look at working with you, like what's that process look like? Do they have to live in a local area, or is it possible to do?
Well, with COVID, I was mostly seeing people in person, but COVID was just like, okay, no, And actually it's worked great because video coaching has been great. I do phone coaching. I still have a couple people that I see in person. The way I like to do my process is again, this is not the scalable version. This is not the thing that makes the most economical sense, but I like to serve people first. So I'll invite them in for an 1.5-hour meeting. And if we get to a place at the end of the meeting where it makes sense to talk about working together, then we could. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll extend an invitation. But usually I don't. Usually I ask them to come back and do another coaching session. And my goal in the coaching session is not to present my business or to show them how I work. It's to coach them. It's to really coach them. And look, if I solve one of their problems, their only problem, that they came to see me and we never see each other again, that's okay. It's fine. I want to work with people who have a deep commitment and passion to get what I've gotten, like I did when I was, 25 years ago, when I wasn't making any money and I was still throwing money down at life coaching. I don't want to saddle myself with some process, some sales process that brings in clients. So it's slow, it's methodical, but it's great. It's fantastic because I get to serve people whether they're clients or not.
Where can people find you then? There's obviously the website that isn't a sales page. Your website, the video on the website's absolute killer. I love it. It's so good. The energy.
There's some elements of my website that I just go on and on. The whole bio is just ridiculously long, but whatever. I needed to tell the story and I told the story. They can go to my website. I'm on Instagram at Andy Petranek. I'm on Facebook at Andy Petranek. I have a free group. It's called Vitalize. It's on Facebook that I do. I usually go live 5 days a week and do a meditation in the mornings. Morning's my time. Like 8 o'clock, evening, 8 o'clock my time.
That's perfect for us down under. Like we can go to sleep after that.
Oh, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. What time is it there? Is it 9:45 there?
No, we're 2:42, but
oh, geez.
You're doing your mornings. It would be like 10 o'clock at night, I reckon.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's the dream time.
Yeah. So I do that. That's where people can access me. And that's probably the best. Or my website. If you want to send me an email, go to my website and there's a contact form. Awesome.
And I truly appreciate the chat and the conversation and everything that
this has been really fun.
It's like I said, I've been excited to have this conversation after I saw all these things that you've done over your life, and that I could have kept you here for 4 days really to just scratch the surface and keep diving deeper. But I know we'll have a lot of people reach out to you because you definitely resonate a lot with me, and obviously the audience with the Man That Can Project love that as well. So for everyone listening, whether you're on YouTube or whichever platform you're now listening to, I'll have all Andy's links there to save you the hassle of jumping on Google, which is also just as easy, but you'll be able to click those and jump over and slide into his DMs and continue the process from that.
Cool.
And thank you for staying up late and sacrificing some family time.
This has been wonderful. I've never done a podcast recording at night before, and I don't know that I'm going to add it to my schedule. But if you invited me back, I would do it in a heartbeat. This was really fun.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachlan Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time.